Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Community of Practices. Great to see you all in the flesh, in the room here, in the Growth Hub, and also online. So everyone waves the camera. Fantastic stuff. Yeah. So first up, I just want to say thank you to Margaret Tynan for use of this fantastic facility, the Growth Hub here on the Cock Road main campus in WIT. Today, the speaker we have is Gillian Fielding, who is the Client Experience Manager from Blackboard. And prior to joining Blackboard, Gillian was a university lecturer in University of Salford and also had a dedicated role working with learners with additional needs. So I guess that will give you an indication as to how she and why she's so passionate about increasing accessibility and enabling learners of all abilities. And that is exactly what Ally can help us with. It can help us improve accessibility of our multiple means of communication and multiple means of format. So Gillian, without further ado, I'd hand it over to you, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Emma. That's fantastic. And thank you to everybody for taking time today to join this session. I'll be very disappointed if you don't go away with something that you will find useful or inspiring, because Ally is it's an amazing product that makes a huge difference to students, to staff, and to institutions, and not just for those students with accessibility requirements, but also for many other circumstances as well, which I was stumbling a little bit there, sorry, because I'm trying to multitask. Now, hopefully you can see my slides. So Emma, could you give me a thumbs up if you can see my slides in the room?
All good, Gillian.
Perfect. Excellent. That's very good. Being a Blackboard person, I'm more used to using Collaborate than Zoom, I will confess. But I seem to be doing all right so far. So we can get the subtitles going as well. So what I'm going to do in this 20 minutes is just tell you what Ally is, do a very short demonstration, talk about how other institutions are benefiting from Ally, share some examples of what others have done, take your questions after about 20 minutes. You can put them in the chat, but I probably won't be able to read them and speak at the same time, but I can certainly come back to them at the end. And I've shared the deck already with Emma that's got some community resources that should be useful to everybody, which I may not talk about, but I've just put them in the deck so you can refer to them, because there's a lot of support for people that are using Ally across the world. That is great resources. I've also put my email on this slide and also a link to my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to connect with me and tell me how you're getting on, ask questions and so on. So first of all, for those of you that don't know what Ally is, and maybe those of you that do, I find this elevator pitch quite useful, just to give people a concept of what the product does. It does three things. It creates alternative formats from content that's within the VLE, so that students and staff can use those alternative formats in different circumstances. It creates and guides, it has instructor feedback that guides instructors and content creators as to how to make their content more accessible. And it provides different level reports on that content and how accessible it is to help inform and shape how you move forward and check progress. It's very positive and very useful, I must emphasize there. So let me stop sharing that and give you a quick demonstration of part of what it can do. We haven't got time to show everything that it can do, but hopefully I'll have enough here that will inspire you to go away and try it if you haven't tried it already, or if you have tried it, hopefully I'll cover something that you haven't seen before. So I'm in a Moodle environment here. It is our demonstration environment, so not necessarily the tidiest, but it's got lots of files in there that I can demonstrate. So I'm going to use this snappily named document here. You can see it's a document. It says doc there. This is looking at it from a student perspective. And we can see it says doc there, so we know it's a Word document, and a student can choose to download the Word document if they like. So they have that option, which I just downloaded then. It's very quick. It opens up. That's like it would be normally within your Moodle environment. But with Ally, what your students see is this A with a down arrow. Now, it doesn't say Ally, just a tip there. If you talk to students about Ally, they won't recognize the brand. Let's just jump to that Word document as I was demonstrating there. So you get a feel of what this particular document looks like. It's just one of our demo documents with headings, text, tables, images in there. So I'll just quickly flick through it so you get a feel for it. Now, the students, as I said, see this alternative formats. That A is the Ally logo. Let's make it a little bit bigger. As I say, it's not branded Ally because we want it to be part of your Moodle workflow. But what students see is the A and the words alternative formats. So if you're sharing this with your students, point them to that. Don't call it Ally because they probably won't know what you're talking about. It isn't branded within the product. It's more what we do internally in universities and so on. Now, this is where Ally does its magic in the background and creates all these different alternative formats that your students can download. And here, what have we got? About half a dozen, 7. It varies on the type of the original content as to which ones they can download. They're generally the same, but you might only see 6, you might see 7. It depends on the original document. You can see, it gives you a quick tip as to how useful or what you can use that document for. So structured PDF for improved use with alternative technology. I will add, tagged PDF is the most popular across the globe generally, and that's because it's very mobile friendly. HTML, another one that's very friendly for mobile devices and viewing on a browser. EPUB version, electronic braille, that's a very specific use for partially sighted students. Audio version, so it'll create that document into an MP3 format. A Beeline reader, which is a fabulous, very popular format that makes reading documentation much easier and quicker. And I'll encourage you to have a look at that and you'll see why. And a translated version into one of, I think it's 71 different languages, is what students can pick from. So I'm just going to demonstrate 2 very quickly. I'm going to pick the HTML version, and once that opens, there we go, it's downloaded. I did do this earlier, but it is normally very quick to download. Obviously, it depends on the size of the document. But as I resize the browser there, I can emulate what it looks like on a mobile phone very easily. You'll see the text flows across the page there. If I size it up to a tablet device, you can see it again. It's just making that text flow. So this is what the second most popular type of alternative format that students download. The other one I'm going to demonstrate is the EPUB version, and I'm picking that because what we've seen through the pandemic is that the numbers of EPUB downloads have risen massively. We don't know why. Ally can't tell us why students are doing things. They can tell us the numbers of downloads. So we see globally there's been a 17% increase in EPUB formats across the world. Some institutions, that number is over 1,000%. Others, it's lower. You've got a good download of EPUBs there at WIT. We think the reasons why is because this version is really useful for doing lots of things. It's got affordances that are easy. Oops, I just need to move the Zoom window there. within EPUB that make it very easy for students to do lots of different things and in lots of different circumstances. So at one touch of a button, they can change the size of the text and it automatically flows. So it's very easy. In Word, you'd have to highlight it and then change the font size, which is quite a number of clicks. We can change the background color. So that may not show on your screens too well because, of course, we're using monitors and screens here, but you should see that that has changed to a beige background, which is often preferred by dyslexic students.
Sorry, Gillian, we're not seeing the document there, the EPUB.
Oh, right. I'm glad you've told me that. Let me stop sharing and share again. Books. Now, are you seeing that now?
Just the header of it. Just the header of it.
Just the header.
Yeah. We saw the HTML version perfectly. That was fine.
Yep. Okay, so you can't see that. Let me stop sharing again. Yeah, there we go. Books. I think this will be the one.
There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you for stopping me there. Appreciate that. So let me just quickly show you again the one button text size increases and decreases and how it flows the text automatically. And again, I was just speaking at that point about the cream color background, how it's just a click to change that, change it to gray. And obviously through the pandemic, people have been on screens more. So one would assume people are having more eye strain. So going for backgrounds like the grey background or even the black background. If a student's reading text in bed next to a partner that's trying to get to sleep, then they may be considerate of that other person and go for a dark background rather than the glaring white background. Similarly, now we're back out and about. If they're on a plane or a train or the dark at night, then you may go for that dark background that's less disruptive to others. Font changes are easy. So those are just some of oops, that's gone back. Are you still seeing that now, the EPUB document?
No, we're just seeing yourself now, Gillian.
Okay, I clicked on something and it went back. Oh, I do apologize. Let's share that again. Back to the EPUB.
Yep.
Fantastic. So there are other things in here like highlighter pens. When I was an undergraduate and printed out documents, I had a set of highlighter pens in different colors, which are built into the EPUB version, along with other tools like underline and so on. Other things students can do is when I was an undergraduate, I used to write in the margins. And again, you can add a note in the margins of an EPUB document. So it might be that like this is a definition or critical part. So students can reflect. In fact, I've done this quite recently on an analytics course I was doing where I'd read the text because it was quite difficult. Then I would make notes in the in this notes field, which are then searchable. So it makes it so much more useful than other types of documents. Other things you can do is look up, copy and paste text, search for keywords within this book, on the internet, on Wikipedia. You can send text in a message, you can make notes from here, and you can have it read to you. So a voice, text to voice, as well as you could choose to read it yourself as well. So it's coming in through two modes, your eyes and your ears, so therefore more digestible and potentially speeds up the digestion of information. We have a lovely video that's shared in the links that I've put in the resources from Edgehill. They had some students that spoke about how they liked using EPUB. And one young woman said, I like being able to change the speed of the voice as well, because if I'm tired, then I like to slow it down a little bit. But if I've got lots of energy or it's an easy text, I can speed it up and go through it that way. So we've seen EPUBs rise in popularity through the pandemic. Now I've stopped sharing that. I'm going to come back to my slides. Here we go. So, okay, so we're back to PowerPoint. hopefully. I mean, you tell me if we're not.
All good, Gillian.
Fantastic, thank you. So you see that through that demonstration, I gave different scenarios about how the alternative formats can be useful for diverse 21st century learners. And we see that anecdotal evidence from all the customers that have got Ally across the world. I mentioned partially sighted students, students with dyslexia may have, the invisible disability. With those I didn't talk about, but people have temporary disabilities. They might break their arm or have temporary hearing loss and so on. So all these formats make them really, the alternative formats really usable for different disabilities, but also we see international students who use those translated versions to check their understanding of text in a different language, the one that they're learning in. Often in this environment, it's English or Irish, but they may, be Chinese students that want to check their understanding. So we've got anecdotal evidence of students using those translated versions in that way. People who are professionals doing CPD or master's programs can use, when they're juggling many plates, they can use those alternative formats to make the most of what they're doing at that time to study. So they might listen to something while they're cooking dinner, whilst they're traveling, and so on. So I'm not going to go through the bottom ones, but hopefully you'll get the picture that all those alternative formats will help students in different circumstances in their learning. We see that, it's really enhancing the student experience. It's works to their preferences and they can personalize their learning. We have some that are improving their productivity through these use of alternative formats and their digital capabilities, because they'll think, oh, I can use that file format in that circumstance and that file format in that circumstance, as well as students who've got those specific needs. And of course, for those, it really reduces the remediation time. If there's a process normally where they have to ask the disability office to convert documents into a different format for them, that can be a lengthy process, whereas Ally can give it them instantly. And I'm not going to go through the instructor feedback. I wanted to focus on the student benefits, but it will give you, as an instructor and academic, it will give you feedback about how you can make your content more accessible for different students. And it sort of trains you and teaches you bits in bite-sized chunks on the go. And then slowly you realize new things and build those into your practice when you're creating documents and content in the first place. And as I say, there's reporting within the tool where you can look at your course report and see, what do I focus on first? What's the biggest challenge within my course for my students that I can look at and address? So, and to give you some examples of what other universities have done, Bangor University, they applied Ally in summer 2020 when the pandemic started. And because it was during the pandemic and they were all really stretched, they just switched it on, put out a very small amount of communications. And in that first year, 67% of their users were downloading alternative file formats in that first year. The PVC academic was delighted with that and apparently is now a huge advocate for awareness raising around the alternative formats and the instructor feedback. Galway, they ran a pilot probably about 3 years ago now. It was a well-supported pilot with training and comms for staff, and they did some research of their users at the end of it. And it was only a year-long funded pilot, and the feedback from the staff and the students was really positive. So it enabled them to secure future funding for Ally. So it demonstrates how successful it was there. University of Derby, they monitor their use on a regular basis to look at maybe what they can tweak, what communications they can roll out. So, they'll say, oh, we've got across our institution, we can see that we've got a lot of documents that haven't got alt tags, for example. So we'll roll out a communications on why those are important. And it's not just for partially sighted students, but if a student was converting content into an audio format that wanted to then listen to it as an MP3, if they didn't put an alt tag in, then it skips the image. And they've gained annual increases in their overall accessibility score year on year at Derby because of the work that they've done. York University, they provide, they're very well resourced, and they've had a big accessibility agenda probably for a year before they got Ally, and they provide a lot of training. They've got dedicated staff working on this. They do communications to staff and students. They've got talking heads on their website about how academics have, in fact, I looked at one this morning and saw one academic saying, yeah, it's great. Now I know about these formats. I use them for my own digital productivity as well as the students. And they've just won an ALT award, which is the UK version of ILTA, for their work. I put links to some of these in the notes section of the slides that I've sent out. Sculpt, they're a Moodle user, and they applied the Sculpt framework, which is a very straightforward framework to help people think about accessible content. And they've had a huge culture change there and great awareness of UDL and accessibility and inclusivity right across the agenda, across the institution. Edgehill, they employed 40 student interns for 12 weeks last summer that worked on not just accessibility or the digital accessibility of the content, but they worked on their VLE, and they've involved them very heavily on redesigning their VLE for this coming year. And finally, the University of York, they took part in an event that we run called Fix Your Content Day, which is part of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and they won the European prize for taking part in that, which is coming up in May. So at that point, I'm going to stop talking and take any questions or any comments and feedback.
Gillian, thanks a million for that. I'll just check the chat, and while I'm checking the chat, any questions in the room, guys?
Quick question, maybe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gillian. Just a very quick question on the EPUB. Is that kind of accessible via the operating systems on normal laptops and PCs, or do you need to download software? Because I always thought EPUB was for ebooks and e-readers and stuff.
Yeah, it depends on the setup there. It does need an EPUB reader, but generally nowadays those are installed on machines, laptops, devices as they come.
Super, thanks.
But you'd obviously need to check your institutional machines there.
I do have a question. Thank you. Hi, Gillian. This is a very, very basic question, and it's because we have Moodle, and I'm not very au fait with all sorts of things. So what I'm asking is this an add-on to Moodle, or is it an alternative to Moodle? And just a little bit of that, because it's really exciting. What you've shown us is like groundbreaking stuff. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that feedback. And it makes a huge difference to so many things, not just the students, but staff and the universities. I'll stop before I carry on going down that avenue. I could talk all day about that. But it is like a bolt-on. It is a bolt-on to Moodle, which you have bought there at Waterford. And it is installed on your system now. So next time you go in, you should see that little A. I think that's right, is it, Emma? It's on everybody.
Correct.
Yeah, fantastic. You will
So
see that
every document you'll have a little A next to it.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I wondered. I thought it was something I was doing wrong.
No, that's A for really. That's A for top marks for Eileen.
That's very exciting. Yeah.
Can I just add as well, what I didn't demonstrate there, just because we only had 20 minutes, was you as instructors and lecturers will also see like a little speedometer. It's like a little semicircle. It could be red, it could be amber, or it could be green. And that's where, if you remember at the beginning, I had a slide that said that Ally does 3 things, and I'll just pull that back up again so that you can see that. I'll go very clumsily back to the beginning, one by one there. This, in fact, you can just see a tiny little, where my mouse is pointing, a tiny little indicator, the semicircle indicator there. When you click on that within your Moodle, it opens this instructor feedback panel. And that's what gives you feedback on how accessible your content currently is. And it goes through and it tells you if there are issues with that document or that content. It tells you how to improve them, and also why it's important to improve them and what impact it will have on the students. So you as an instructor, in fact, will see 2 things when you log into Moodle as a result of having Blackboard Ally. So one is that A for the alternative formats that your students can download. And as an instructor, you will see that little speedometer or semicircle. Your students don't see that, just you see that. And when you click on it, it will open an instructor feedback panel, which is guidance on how you can improve the content if you need to do. You might not need to do, but it's there as a useful instruction tool to help you.
Thank you.
Hey, Gillian, thanks a million. And I was at a session in February where you were talking about, or colleagues of yours were talking about the speedometer. So I do need to work on it. I could see some of it comes in at the green, some at the orange, some at the red. So I've, developing more an awareness about that. Now, I have a couple of questions. One is, what about PDF? Like, say, when I have academic articles that I want a student to read, what I've been doing, I work with non-traditional learners who are working full time. I read the article, I create an MP3 so they can listen to it in the car. Will this EPUB, and there is, I know Ally now has the facility to download an MP3. Will it work with the PDF?
Yes, if you upload your PDF document to Moodle, then students, you don't need to convert it to an MP3 because your students will be able to pick that from that list there that I showed you. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the second question was, can I check? I know you were saying that you could see kind of what format students are downloading. Can I see as a facilitator on a module?
You can't at the moment see that yourself, which formats your students are downloading. But if you speak to your colleagues there, then they can tell you that information.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks a million.
Yeah. I should also add that because you asked about, you're uploading a PDF. I demonstrated it on a Word document. It also works on PowerPoint documents, it works on PDFs, but also if you upload, if you write content in your WYSIWYG editor as well, students have the options to download that in alternative formats as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the other session reminded me about using Word properly and putting in titles, and the difference that was making when it was converted. So that was really helpful. The PDF thing is where it's a published article, so it's only available to me in PDF, or maybe it's not, but as far as I've been aware, it's only available to me in PDF. And so that's great that works anyways. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's, again, it might be worth talking to your library staff about whether they can get the document, the PDF, in a more accessible format or link to it and so on. It really depends on what the PDF is. And you raise an interesting point there about if you're uploading Word documents or PowerPoint documents, because Word has an accessibility checker built into it that will help guide you to doing things like using the headings when you're creating those documents. We always encourage people to use that as well to supplement Ally and sort of make it as accessible and as usable. It's not just about accessibility, it's about usability and digital usability as well. So the Microsoft accessibility tools are a quick check. If you just put in the help accessibility, it will come up with the accessibility checker and then tell you anything you can do in there to improve it, which is clearly what you've been doing already, but I wanted to share that for others as well.
Thanks, Gillian.
Thanks, Gillian. Really interesting, and good to see the breadth and depth of what you can do with Ally. And actually, I really like the idea of having the Make Your Content Better Day. So maybe it's an idea for ourselves in WIT. I just had a question about the PDFs. If it's a scanned PDF, will it still convert? So if it's a scan of a document or an image in a PDF format, will it be able to pick up will it do OTR text or what's the story there?
The quick answer is yes, it will. But obviously it depends on the quality of the scanned document. If it is a very poor quality, then it might be a poor quality. But having said that, I was doing a demonstration last week, and somebody sent me a very poor quality scanned document, and Ally did a really good job. I was very impressed with how well it converted, as was the person from the disability team at that university. So the answer is yes, but obviously caveated with if it's really blurry, then it's very hard for it to pick up the characters.
That's excellent. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter. John.
Thanks, Emmett. Thanks very much, Gillian. That was great. I loved it.
Oh, good.
I suppose a question for you that I just like maybe to get a sense of what you've gotten when you've gone out onto the field and you've seen what other institutions have done. How has it been promoted to get both my own colleagues and students my own colleagues who use it and students to engage with it maybe?
Yeah. Yep. It's varied from institution to institution, often depending on how much resource they have been able to use to promote it. Now, I mentioned, if you remember when I was talking about Bangor, that they bought it in summer 2022. Now, to just give you the bigger picture, at the same time, Bangor moved they were on our VLE called Learn, but we now call it Learn Original, which is our old VLE. So if any of you have experienced that, you recognize it as looking quite old. And we now have a Learn Ultra VLE platform, which for our VLE users is quite a significant move. We do say it's like moving to a new VLE in the difference of the move and the work you have to put into it. So they moved that summer to the new VLE. They also stopped using Teams and came to using Collaborate, and they also implemented Ally, and they were also in the middle of a pandemic. So as you can imagine, their workload was enormous. So they didn't have much time to do much comms, but they did send out some small comms. They put it on the homepage of the VLE that this new tool is available and you can download these alternative formats. They ran some out through heads of departments, and that was about it. They didn't do much else that year, but now they've started seeing, well, wow, 67% of students are using these alternative formats. That's incredible. So they wanted to find more and then promote it more. So they've since been doing more work, and they've applied now. What they do now is they send out departmental reports. Somebody in the room asked whether you could see exactly what's happening on your course, and you are able to to do that, but only centrally at the moment. It's something that's on the roadmap for the future. But what the central team did is they got the reports and they send them out to different departments, just the departmental reports, not other departments. So they only saw their own. And they could then start going, wow, well, this is, because it varies from, you know, an art department, so humanities to maths to engineering, in terms of what files they download and what they find useful. So they're now working through their heads of department. They're working with the teams. Their libraries are rolling it out and passing it on to students. They're asking their academic lecturers to build it into induction so that students are made aware of those files. Some do training to staff on how to make content more accessible, or some actually call it how to make your courses more digitally accessible and to be productive. I'm paraphrasing the titles, it's more succinct, but rather than just selling the courses as like accessibility courses, they're talking about digital accessibility or digital capabilities or productivity, because it seems to get more people to come to the training. Some haven't run any training for staff. The instructor feedback panel that I showed you should be fairly intuitive. What is interesting, though, that's one institution were telling me they did run training, but as a result of that, more people are coming to more training because they're really excited about it. I've been in universities where, you know, I've helped out on some of their training, and you commonly hear staff going, why did we know about this sooner? It's so useful, because it does make a huge difference to the students. So it largely depends on the resource that you've got and how much time you've got to put it out there. You can just switch it on, do minimal comms, and it will make a difference, as we saw in the Bangor case. But then in the Edge Hill case, you know, they had 40 students, interns last summer working on it, working on the VLE as well, supporting academics. And that will obviously drive a bigger change where they've got more resources to roll out. We do have, and I've put the links in the slides. I didn't show these slides, they were further on. But we have a lot of free resources at Blackboard, and we have a whole community of practice within our Ally user group forum, where you're all entitled to join and share with other people about what you're doing. We tend to meet every couple of months. The web pages are persona based. So we have student facing web pages, instructor or academic facing web pages, and administrator facing web pages, and many institutions will just maybe put out comms to students and link to our pages, because we get feedback that, you know, there's nice little videos on there, the text is usually is really digestible and easy for students to follow. I hope that answers your question, but feel free to ask any more.
Any other questions in the room, guys?
Yeah, no, just I suppose to reiterate the point John made there. We did send it all staff email to everybody. Yeah. It was announced in the CTEL start of year welcome back email. So that's twice. I think you mentioned it in the newsletter twice.
Possibly. Yes.
But despite maybe the lack of engagement or knowledge among staff, we can tell you that students are using it, and it was bought for students primarily. So that is the good news. And I know the disability office who funded it did communicate about it as well. So I think people who need to know it's there and are using it, i.e. the students. But yeah, I mean, obviously we want staff to engage with it as well. So you, now that you've been here today, John, you can go and spread the you can be good word. You can be the disciple. Yeah.
Thanks a million, Ken. Any questions from anyone online, guys? You can feel free to turn your microphone or pop a question in the chat. We'll wrap up in about another 4 or 5 minutes. Just feel free. Gillian, I have 1 or 2 questions before we wrap up. I suppose question number 1 is there much uptake on the MP3 format, on the audio format?
It's interesting you say that. Pre-pandemic, it was below 5% across the board, but we have seen an increase in the audio formats during the pandemic. In fact, we've seen a huge increase in the downloading of alternative formats, but also of the MP3 format as well. I think yours is quite popular there.
Because I suppose at the top of my head, it would link into what Fanula asked is for me, if a learner had a chance of, instead of reading the document, they could go off for a walk and they could listen to it while they walk. That's a really good option. The very last question before we wrap it up is, what would be your top tip to a lecturer or a learner who's thinking about using Ally?
Yeah, okay. One top tip, or can I have more than one? If I'm quick, I'm going to squeeze more than one in. I'm not even going to let you answer it. First of all, I'd talk to your students about it, tell them about it, but also see how they're using it and get feedback from them, because I think that'll give you really useful insights about how it's useful to them and maybe what you can do. You have a course accessibility report that you can see within your own course. So have a look at that. It will tell you what the most severe issues are with the accessibility of your documentation. And treat this as a journey. You can't make, generally people say, oh, there's quite a few issues because I wasn't very aware of this. See it as a journey. Pick off the things that are important to keep it manageable, I would say, and utilize some of those alternative formats yourself. I do, you know, Emmett, you're just saying about going for a walk. I listen to things when I'm walking the dog, and I'm so much more focused than if I'm sat at home at the computer because I'm not getting distracted. And maybe also tell your heads of department about it and your PVC academic, because that's a good way to get out the messages about how this can be really make a difference at your institution to your students and your staff.
Gillian, I think that's all the questions from the room. I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time today. And if you have a round of applause for Gillian.
Oh, thank you. I wish I was there in person.
Yeah. So, Gillian, thanks a million again. And
absolute pleasure.
Actually, what you might do is you might pop me on the link to that community practice so we can look into that, the Blackboard Ally one, so we could see what that's about. And maybe a link to just additional resources. The lecturers and staff we have been talking to here, they're very keen, but I think they just like some bite-sized little video chunks of how to use the thing. So if you have those type of resources, please do share them on and we will share them here.
Yeah, it's in the slide deck that I sent across this morning. So if you send that to everybody, and you'll see also the Global Accessibility and Fix Your Content Day that I mentioned as well.
Super. Gillian, thank you very much for your time. Have a good day and we will talk to you soon.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out. Really good to see you.